Couple questions here about Oregon going into this game against Ohio State. I think Oregon is playing a really good brand of football. I want to state that up front. No team ever plays a perfect brand of football. I think if you ask Ohio State fans, and I will ask one in particular by the name of Jay Stevens later this week on the show when we do our crossover, there will be questions like, why is the offense starting slow? Or is Will Howard, has he been good enough? Or is the running game consistent enough? But that's where I want to start with Oregon. So the running game finally exploded this past week against Michigan State. Oregon had not had a carry from a running back of more than, I think, 23 yards or so. Like, Jordan James wasn't struggling to run the football. He was around 100 yards on the ground in just about every game. So it's not as if it was some big, massive struggle through the first few weeks. It just left something to be desired. And one of the things I liked most about Oregon's offensive performance Friday night against Michigan State was there were chunk running plays. Now, the reason I have questions about Oregon in the running game, or a question, is how sustainable is that? How much does that carry over to Ohio State? Because you are now playing a defense that has guys like Jack Sawyer on the other side, or JT Tuimoloau, or I don't know if that's the exact pronunciation, but you get the guy that I'm going for there. He's really, really good. Or Caleb Downs in the secondary, who's one of the best safeties in all of college football. Or Denzel Burke on the outside as a corner. I think it's a fair question to ask of, if you haven't been explosive in the run game all season and then you do it once, is that a new trend, or was that an aberration, especially as you go up against a tougher opponent? Does Oregon need to run the football the way they did against Michigan State to have success and win the football game? No. Jordan James was 150 yards or so in the first half, and Twitter was asking all sorts of questions about, is he going to break Kenyon Barner's record? And then Michigan State made their adjustments. Now, I think part of that was Oregon getting a little bit vanilla with their play calling. I think part of that is when you get a big lead, no matter what coaches or players say, you can lose an edge. And I don't think the offensive line had the same juice in the second half as they did in the first, because Oregon knew they had the game won. Now, I hope that that doesn't become a problem against Ohio State, and that comes down to Dan Lanning. Motivating your guys, getting them in the right mindset, that's on the head coach, that's on the position coaches, coordinators, everybody on staff, but it starts with the head coach. So for Jordan James, he finally broke some long runs. Like that first one he had, Connerly had the kick out block. I don't remember exactly what the concept was, but he ran left and he broke it down the sideline after he slipped through an ankle tackle. By the way, side note on Jordan James. Someone had the comment in a question earlier on the show, we look like a Big Ten team. Is there a more Big Ten running back than Jordan James? I mean, he's just built for contact. He wants contact. He wants to run you over. He plowed a couple of guys against the Spartans. It was awesome to see. And that can be a tone-setting element. He also has the ability to create big plays in the run game if you give him the opportunity to get a one-on-one with a safety. And guess what? If you do that, or if a corner's trying to wrap him up, he's probably going to run through an arm tackle. Now, maybe Denzel Burke is a better tackler. Caleb Downs certainly is than the guys Michigan State had. The number 43, I forget his name for Michigan State. That dude is a football player. He was really good. I'm not saying Oregon should go after him in the transfer portal this year. I'm just saying maybe they should think about it. But that's an off-season question. Let's focus on the here and now. But when Jordan James finally broke through and had a long run, he hadn't had a 20-yard rush all season. I was watching on my couch and I out loud, there was nobody around because, well, I live by myself, so I was just watching the game, which frankly is my favorite way to watch. And then all of you were, talking to me and such, and that's really fun. But once he broke free, I said, finally. Like it felt like, and Lanning had said before, it feels like they were close to breaking through. Well, they broke through. And I thought Will Stein did a really, really good job in that first half of leaning on Jordan James and just going back to the well, but also getting him the ball in different ways, right? Getting him the ball on a toss. I mean, the second half, he went with the Wildcat. I think that was Will Stein literally just messing around, being like, you know what? We put this in. Let's see if we like it. We're going to snap it to Jordan James, fake an end around to Dylan Gabriel, make him think we're going to hand it to the quarterback and throw, but we're just going to run a variance of a quarterback sweep with our running back here. And, picked up 5-6 yards. And I was like, okay, all right. I think the coaches know they got this one in the bag. But those sorts of plays, I wonder how many of those you can generate against Ohio State. It was great the way they ran the ball in the first half, but how many runs of 10 or more yards are you going to be able to generate against this Ohio State defense? It's not a doubt, it's just a question, because it's not going to be as simple as it was against Michigan State. You call a lot of the same concepts, doesn't mean you're going to have the same results, because their trench play is vastly superior to what Michigan State put on the field. So that's a question I have. I'll ask a quick defensive question. How are the linebackers going to hold up? Jeffrey Bossa wasn't everywhere. I thought the linebackers did a solid job, but frankly, they didn't have to do very much because the defensive line was just so good. So how effective can Jeff Bossa and Bryce Betcher and Devin Jackson and Justin Jacobs be in tackling these Ohio State running backs? They're going to get matched up on them in the passing game. They're going to have to slow them down in the running game. How are they going to play? This is going to be a big test. Last time they faced a backfield that was on this sort of level, it was Ashton Genty. It didn't go very well. And you can't afford to have that sort of game, because if Ohio State is able to run for 200 to 250 yards in this football game, that's going to be a difficult task to ask Oregon to win it. So that's the small defensive question that I have, but I love Oregon's front four. I don't know the state of the Ohio State offensive line. That'll be a question for Jay later in the week. But third question that I have is, how quickly can you settle Dillon Gabriel into this football game? Because last week against Michigan State kind of took him a little bit. He got there eventually. But again, that Michigan State team, I think we all know, not on the same level as Ohio State. You're going up against two All-American NFL caliber players in the secondary. And if you make mistakes, they will make you pay. And Dillon Gabriel made mistakes last week, and Michigan State made him pay. But he struggled settling into that game, and Oregon, thankfully, was able to lean on the rushing attack. But if you're not going to have Jordan James go for 150 yards in the first half against Ohio State, as he did against MSU, which this may be a hot take, I don't think Jordan James, he could get to 150 yards on the day. If he does it in the first half, you can Sharpie in an Oregon victory. I don't think it'll come that easily. Oregon has to play a complete and balanced offensive game. And in the first half, the passing attack kind of took a little while to get going. So how does Will Stein go about attacking that Ohio State defense? How does he want to get Dillon Gabriel worked into the rhythm and flow of the offensive game plan? And how much does he want to have a true balance of, hey, we want to be 50-50 run pass? Or is he going to lean on Jordan James a lot? Or how big of a role does Noah Whittington play? Those are questions that I have for Oregon right now going into this Ohio State game, and there are plenty more. There are plenty more keys. There are plenty more important players. If you have a thought, by all means, drop in the YouTube comments, hit me up on X, or become a Locked On Ducks insider. Thanks for making this your first listen of the day. Go make Locked On College Football your second, because I host over there and I give you the biggest stories in the greatest sport on planet Earth. And let me tell you, it is a fun, fun time.